Well, the Lakota were one of the original Native American tribes. They lived and hunted all over the Great Plains before the arrival of European settlers. Since then, the language has been spoken by fewer and fewer people. But our next guest is hoping to reverse that. Tim Easter teaches the Lakota language in Sioux Falls. He's with the Sioux Falls School District and is here with the school district's Office of Indian Education. And he'll be among those helping to share the language in a special an event being held this weekend. And so, Tim, thanks for being here today with us.
Oh, sure. No, thank you.
Yeah, this is an interesting subject. So I read the fewer and fewer people. I read it was just 20 years ago, some 6,000 people were speaking the Lakota language, and it's down to only a couple thousand now.
And we're down there. I think some of the statistics that we have are about 10%, and then with people being older. And so there is, reaching that point where if people are not picking up the language, that yes, it could be, one of those languages that no longer are in existence.
So let's back up a little bit and talk about the Lakota tribe, and where we talked about it, the Great Plains, but let's talk about the history of the tribe itself and where it existed.
Yes, and so pretty much have been around here in South Dakota, North Dakota, Nebraska, Minnesota, and so all of the states around, parts of Canada. And so a very wide area, and then among with other tribes. And then, throughout history, yes, the area has been reduced. And then, and so there are reservations in South Dakota, North Dakota, Minnesota, small part of Nebraska, and Montana. And there are some speakers in Canada as well.
So how widely spoken is it? I mean, is it common is it as simple as saying the Lakota tribe speaks Lakota language? Or are there other languages that
it would have been, yes, in the past, and even through boarding school era in which the language was pretty much prohibited, you still found people speaking. And from a personal note, I still remember my mom and my aunts and uncles and everyone speaking the language. So it was really great for me as a kid to hear the language being spoken, in just an everyday setting. So
what's the biggest barrier for people to get to speak the language again, or to try to get them to?
Probably just the comfort. We know that with the language, now it's not as familiar, and so for some people that might hear the language for the first time, it's something really foreign. But I do think that might be a barrier. There might be some, where some people feel like, okay, it's not as important, and that, learning English and learning to read and write and all of that is the important part. But we do see that it helps connect people, and that there is something, tying into culture, and there is that move to go back to that. And what's really important is that language piece when it comes to learning culture and bringing those things back and getting connected back to the culture.
Are there different dialects within the language itself?
So we do have 3 different dialects, and so there's the Lakota, there's Dakota, and a Western Dakota. So there are different dialects with that, but they are the same. About 75% of the words are the same in all 3 dialects, and so it can be understood.
So to try to encourage people to speak it again, is it difficult to learn if you haven't had any history or background with it?
I think some people might think that it can be. Once you get into the language, it's easy to learn. At least in my opinion, as far as structure and all of those things, I think it's easy to pick up. So.
Talk about the importance of preserving it and why the initiative to try to encourage more understanding or learning of it.
Well, as we go back, and I think for Lakota and Dakota people, and throughout history, and we see that with ceremonies and basically culture stripped. Now there's that shift to go back and just for some people it's healing, and that language is important in that, and so it is important to bring back. I think it's important for students is to connect with culture. It has been for me to be able to go and to be able to learn not only the language but also culture and find ways, and the Lakota culture, there's a lot of great lessons in there, and I think it's important for students and kids and adults, I think, to go back, and it's a great thing to learn. So.
Did you find any resistance when you tried this initiative or try to help learn it? I mean, I can't believe people would.
I think if there is any resistance, it would be the argument that there's no place for it, that students need to learn to read and write and everything being in English. But at the same time, I think there's also research that says, as far as learning the culture, being connected to the culture, and for people to be able to identify it and know who they are and where they came from is important.
Let's talk about this weekend's event a little bit.
Yes,
People can
so the Lakota Language Consortium, so they do camps. They've done them on the reservations. They've done them in Minneapolis, Denver, Chicago. I think next month they're in New York City. So it's been a really great thing for them to come in and to host this camp. It is $25 for a day, $40 for a weekend, but they did mention that they're not turning anyone away. So if there are people out there, native or non-native, yeah, it's highly encouraged. Come on out, and it's a great way to get your feet wet as far as learning some of the basic Lakota conversational language.
Yeah, interesting subject. Tim, appreciate you being here today.
Oh, yes, thank you.
Yeah, good luck with the event this weekend.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.